Okay, I'm going to focus on just two pairs, US Canadian dollar and Australian New Zealand dollar. I want to have a look at possible scenarios that are upcoming in these pairs as I view them. Um, Starting with, I think both of these pairs have great trade opportunities as we've seen already in US Canadian and to come, I think, in Australia and New Zealand. So I want to focus on the pairs that have good opportunities, and I'm staying away mostly from dollar pairs right now. So looking at these, starting with US Canadian, both of the scenarios I'm currently running are bearish. We've been bearish since 13750, and now that the confusing sideways sequence here above trendline support has been um, uh, clarified, I can now run one of two bearish scenarios. So the first of those, I will go over both, and I will go over how I see whichever one it is, a similar situation will occur quite soon, as I see it. So looking at this, I've had the same count for a while, wave 4 into here. So I'm looking at something like 1, 2, 3, 4, and one more low still for 5, and then a bigger bounce towards 1, 3, 4. However, there is a more bearish count on this, and that is that wave 5 possibly came into here. So for example, if we view this sequence, it's not my preferred sequence, but I have to consider it because of the strength of the current move. Although this is a commodity currency, and as such, fifth waves do tend to be quite strong in these, I still have to consider this could be already in wave 3 now. So for example, this box sequence, if this is 5 waves down into here, we then had a 3-wave correction for wave 2, and now we are in wave 1 of wave 3. So if this completes a 5-wave sequence for wave 1 of wave 3, we will still have a 3-wave bounce for wave 2 of wave 3. So either way, whether this is already in wave 3 or whether this is wave 5 of the first leg entirely, there will still be, in my opinion, a bounce to come. And I see this bounce as being something quite strong into the 134x region. Now, I will go over that. Right now there is some divergence coming in on the daily, and that can be negated, obviously. There's no point in trying to run divergence without a reversal candle of some kind, but I still see this either count as having some type of correction into 134x. You can also do something very basic, as some breakout traders do, and draw a trend line there. But either way, a bounce is on the way. Now, what I wanted to show is a sequence. For example, back in 2016, US Canadian dollar had its first downward leg into springtime. Now, this box sequence here is the kind of thing that I expect to happen right now in US Canadian dollars. So this is on the daily. Now, if I go view the box sequence on the 4-hour chart, I want to have a look at this because I'm expecting something similar to happen. It might not, but it is my preferred scenario based on either count for a bounce. Now, for example, in this box sequence in early 2016, we had already started wave 3 down, and as you can see, price had already well eclipsed this low and started off strongly. And it was already looking like it was going to take off violently and run. And ultimately it did, but it did not immediately. You can see it entirely reversed that first fall all the way back up to about, I would say, like a 70% reversal of that fall. It started with a small 5-wave advance, following a 3-wave correction there, and another series of 3s here to complete a larger 3-wave move for wave 2 of wave 3. Now, I highlight this because I'm essentially expecting something similar to happen now, where it violently moves down, whether it's wave 5 or wave 1 of 3, and then a bigger 3-wave correction will emerge. A correction of some kind will emerge. I think it's going to be a bigger kind than a 134x, but that has to be seen still. In any case, I just wanted to bring that up because I am looking for a larger bounce like that, regardless of either bearish count. And I do then think we will see the large decline towards 124x, as I've been talking about for months now. So I think that will come. I just think that, first of all, it may have been a bit too easy, and the spike may have too many people chasing it, rather. And when traders chase something, it often returns and spikes back on them. So I'm looking for something like this now. So that is my view right now. So any bounce on this, I'm still looking for this to head down more for now into 132x, maybe even 131, and then a more decent bounce to emerge. Ultimately, it's bearish either way. And we've been running the bearish count since 13750, and it's been going very well despite the confusion at support here. Okay, the second pair I want to run an analysis on is Aussie New Zealand, as I think a more bullish bounce is coming. Unfortunately, this whole bullish sweep here did not work out. So I've switched to a bearish idea, but only temporarily. This is a daily chart, so looking at a low here, I think it is more likely at this stage that we see a Z wave low into 102 or so, breaking the September 2016 low. But regardless of that, that's something for the future. I am expecting a larger bounce here at trendline support before it's totally broken. So we are at support, and I cannot be immediately bearish at support. We may see something like US Canadian where there's just a tiny bounce, but right now I favor a larger bounce for a couple hundred points. Now, looking at the local daily move down, I have this, there are a number of ways to count this, but I'm viewing this as corrective for now for 5 waves of C, and I think it's probably more likely, given that the initial bounce at the beginning of June was only 3 waves up, that we will probably see one more low here, breaking the 2 June low, 2nd June low, and then a bigger correction towards 105.50. That right now, after looking at this pair closer, is my preferred counts, to see one more low towards 103x beneath here. However, it is possible we do get, going down to the 4 hour, it is possible we do get more of a B wave correction into here. I will be keeping an eye out for this. There is also the possibility that this could triangulate for the wave 4 idea, where we have 3 for B, C, D, and E, and then one fresh low, and then the move up. I'm not expecting a grand move up, maybe, but actually I can't say, because if we get a new low, price will then most likely reset, and it is possible to build a fresh momentum following type of scratch that. It is possible to start a new 5-wave move from a new low. But in any case, I think the odds at this stage do favor one low beneath 2 June. The reason being the current upswing here is just 3 waves. If this was a 5-wave upswing, I will be looking for a B wave low for sure, but because it's only 3 so far, the B wave low is speculative. And so I'll keep an eye out for this, but I think looking at the daily, the odds probably favor one more low. Also, the stochastics are still beneath the 20 line, and when that happens, they tend to stay below a little bit longer. So here, if we do consider this A and B, we could have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave sequence for C, and then a bigger bounce. So I think a bigger bounce is favored. So let's see if that emerges. And that could be good for a couple hundred points. Maybe 200, maybe 150, maybe 3, but I think it's still open to that overall. And looking at the weekly, the 8 EMA will still, even next week, come into 105.50 or so. So there's still room to reach up towards that before a larger move down, which is probably now favored, judging how this whole 3-wave swing as well, how it turned into a 3-wave swing, and how the long idea here did not work out. So that's how I'm looking at it right now. So those 2 pairs, I think, are 2 of the best trades. Both, one is already underway, the other not yet, but I will update these pairs. I'm going to be watching these pairs closely. US Canadian in particular looks like one of the best trades over the next few weeks. What's interesting about the Canadian dollar, I was talking about this privately before, is that if you look at the Canadian dollar COT positioning, large traders are heavily, heavily, heavily short. They are not US Canadian, but heavily short against the Canadian dollar. Now, this is at an extreme low. The red line here is at an extreme point. Now, if these large traders, hedge funds, and so on, if they reverse their short Canadian dollar position and either just remove or they take a long position against or with the Canadian dollar, that will send US Canadian down further. And that is the type of thing we want to see. If we can get a small correction here to 103.40, 134 or so, then the larger wave 3 can really take us down to the preferred area of 124 or so. So I think a lot of traders will end up reversing because the extreme COT short position against the Canadian dollar is really, well, it's at an extreme point, and at extreme points they do tend to reverse. Plus, we keep in mind that we have what I would call now confirmed bearish divergence on the weekly, and that will most likely see this continue to sell off for a number of months. So any type of three-wave bounce is to be sold into, and all counts, all Elliott wave counts, all analysis should favor bearish sequences here. So corrections are to be sold into because of the bearish setup here. So I think that's probably the best trade coming up. Euro New Zealand was great. Bitcoin was great when it was running. Aussie New Zealand at one point was very good. And I think this is the next big one. So anywhere from here down to 124. And I will update these pairs, both of them ongoing in the next updates. All right, bye-bye.